might in the postseason.
So the Rams improved to 4-2 with a 27-17 win at Jacksonville. The Rams benefited from 2 special teams touchdowns. It was very special. And playing against Blake Bortles never hurts. Nick, when are the Jaguars going to sign Tony Romo?
Listen, this is CC's absolute least favorite topic on the show, so I will be quick here. The Jacksonville Jaguars, CC, you have made the point again and again that practice is important. The reason I'm saying the Jags and not the...
Well, practice, I say that practice is important if you can play. If you can't play, practice ain't nothing, but you just out there.
Correct. No, but so I believe we think, maybe I'm wrong here, that Tony Romo is a guy that has shown in his career he could play, but he's not in football shape. I get it. He's been in the broadcast booth. He's been doing a great job next to Jim Nantz. They seem like it's a buddy, like a buddy cop movie coming up soon between these two guys. I love the chemistry. However, with that said, with Jacksonville, when you look at them and you're like, okay, they have Indy, Cincinnati, the Chargers, Cleveland, Arizona, and then Indy again. Bring in Tony. Let him practice. Let him get in shape over these next 6 weeks. Even Blake Bortles can tread water with that defense there. And then you got a real quarterback for the final 5 weeks. Because here's what I know. The Jags have 52 of 53 contending players, and then they have Blake Bortles at quarterback.
So you're convinced that last year before the season, you thought Tony Romo was a Super Bowl quarterback? Before he got injured and Dak took his job.
You and I didn't know each other 2 years ago. I've always thought Tony Romo is one of the most underrated players in recent NFL history. I think he's really
underrated.
Really yeah, underrated. Maybe over-discussed, but underrated.
Oh, my God.
So
how many times did he lead his team to the playoffs?
Lead his team to the playoffs?
Yes, Tony Romo.
3 times?
Oh, wow, what a career. That'll get him in Canton.
Finally,
let's stop talking about him.
Falcons were up 17-0 against Miami at the half, and then the second half started, and Jay Cutler and the Dolphins scored 20 unanswered points to leave with the win. Seems like no lead is safe for Atlanta. Nick, are you worried that the Super Bowl hangover is a real thing?
The Super Bowl hangover, we've seen teams that lose in the Super Bowl and then the following year, and more often recently, the following year have a down season. We saw it with Carolina. We seem to be seeing it with Atlanta. I don't know that it's because of the Super Bowl. I don't know that they're not over the Super Bowl loss. What I think is more likely is that last year was a perfect storm of events for them. Matt Ryan played way better than his career says he is. His career says he's a good quarterback. Last year he played like one of the 2 best quarterbacks in football. The defense, which doesn't have a ton of talent outside of Vic Beasley, was one of those bend, don't break defenses. They're running
They created a lot of turnovers and sacks.
Right, absolutely. They were a big play defense, maybe is a better way to put it. They had all these things going for them, and because the Cowboys lost in their first playoff game, the playoffs went through Atlanta, where theoretically that team is really good. CeCe, they now, as you mentioned, lost 2 home games. They have 2 of their wins. The ball was in the end zone with a chance for those to be losses against the Bears and Lions. They just don't look like the intimidating, amazing team they were last year.
Even though it was pretty much the same team as last year.
Except the offensive coordinator. Kyle Shanahan is now the head coach in San Francisco, which I believe makes a big difference in their offense. Matty Ice is still a great football player, but the terminology, they tried to keep the offense the same, but the play caller is totally different. Now, the Super Bowl hangover, it's real. It's not like the Loch Ness Monster. It's not like the Easter Bunny. Like, it's real. So I know that's real. So now the team that lost the biggest lead in Super Bowl history, would that have a negative effect on them? If I believe the Super Bowl curse is real, then yes, I believe then losing the most insurmountable lead in Super Bowl history would have an effect on the team in a negative way. And it has on the Falcons. They have not recovered from Super Bowl 51 loss to the Pats.
All right, we're going to shift gears for a second, talk a little Colin Kaepernick. The free agent quarterback filed a grievance claiming NFL owners have colluded to keep him out of the NFL in retaliation for his leadership and advocacy for equality and social justice. Kaepernick's attorney released a statement, quote, Colin Kaepernick's goal has always been and remains to simply be treated fairly by the league he performed at the highest level for and to return to the football playing field. Okay, so CeCe, what is your reaction to Colin Kaepernick's team filing this grievance?
When I came out of college, I was ruled ineligible for signing with an agent. I potentially squared off with the NFL that I was going to sue them to allow me that I wasn't an amateur. I had 4 I forfeited my amateur status because I had taken payments from an agent that I was a professional. So at that time, you had to have 4 years from high school graduation to play in the NFL. And my agent let me know that, this might not go well for you. Like they could blackball you. Like they've set the rules.
You only had 3 years.
3 years from high school graduation. So after my junior year, I was ruled ineligible. So the NFL decided to change the rule. So I didn't have to file a lawsuit against them. Thank God. And they allowed you, after your 3rd year of high school graduation, you could enter the league. So I was the first player to ever come into the NFL after only being 3 years in college. They allowed me to be drafted in the supplemental draft, but that was not a fight that my legal team really wanted in trying to battle the NFL and their lawyers in court. So this is going to be a hard case to win. It's an even harder case to prove. But to me, it seems as if Colin now is all in, as if now they've jeopardized my career. I wouldn't be shocked if Colin never plays in the NFL now, because now what you're trying to accuse the NFL owners of doing, it's almost impossible to be able to prove it. And if there were 2 to 4 general managers and owners that were looking at Colin, I believe with this grievance, those 2 to 4 opportunities will go away.
Nick.
You remember the line from Casino? Robert De Niro's character said it to one of his floor managers about all these slot machines being guys hit jackpot after jackpot. And he said, listen, either you were in on it or you were too stupid to notice it. Either way, you got to go. NFL owners are going to have to decide, are we in on it, or are we all, as a collective, too stupid to realize this guy is an upgrade for essentially every team's backup quarterback, for 10 teams starting quarterback, for 5 teams with playoff hopes starting quarterback? Jags, Dolphins, Jets, Denver, Indy. And obviously the owners would prefer, I guess, the answer be, no, we've just decided it's no longer about the 1,600 best players. Not that we all got in a room and discussed to not let Cap in the league.
Right.
But I want to make something clear on this. I don't think there is one group text, one 32 owner email, don't sign Colin Kaepernick, sign here. I don't think there is going to be a smoking gun piece of evidence to say all 32 owners have colluded to keep him out of the league. But let's not act like we haven't seen this type of collusion to keep a player out of the league in sports before. Barry Bonds, his final year in Major League Baseball, I believe led Major League Baseball in on-base percentage, was near the top of the league in OPS. And the owners decided, without having to actually say it, it's better for the game for him not to be involved. And he never played again. And that was without the President of the United States, a man of whom many of the owners are friends with. One friendly enough to get an ambassadorship. Handful gave him $1 million to the inauguration campaign. Thank you very much. The inauguration committee. That we had President Trump before 3 weeks ago. President Trump at a rally 3 months ago brag about the fact that it's being reported Colin Kaepernick is not being signed because owners are afraid of a mean tweet. So I don't think this is Cap saying, I'm sacrificing my ability to get in the league. I think this is Cap's team saying, you know what? Maybe this is your only hope of getting in the league. Maybe rather than, let me just ask you, maybe rather than deal with some type of lawsuit, discovery, these types of things, that there will be a team that says, you know what? It is easier and better for all of us if we sign him. That the lawsuit dies the moment a team signs him. So, and then Cap gets a chance to go on a practice field to, as you say, the players will see if he can play or if he can't play. So I don't think this is Cap forfeiting his chance to get in the league. I think Cap believes I have no chance to get in the league unless I do something like this.
I disagree with you, and I agree with you wholeheartedly. This feels like a very Hail Mary type of move. I don't know what the end game is for him, unless it is what you think, that there is an owner that's suddenly going to say, you know what, instead of going through all this silliness with the lawsuit and collusion and all of it, we'll just sign him. It'll just be easier for everyone. That seems so preposterous to me, and no disrespect to that being your point. It hasn't happened up until this point when they actually perhaps needed someone. So for them to do it to avoid a lawsuit against the NFL just seems at this point so ludicrous. So what's the end game? How do you expect to play in a league that you're threatening to sue? And if the end play is, well, I just want to make sure everyone knows that I've done every single thing I possibly can to back into the league, then what? Then what happens?
No, he should definitely file a grievance. If he feels that the teams have colluded.
But if you say he knows he's not going to play anymore,
I didn't say he didn't know that.
No,
I said that's my feeling.
Right.
Like, I hope I'm not right. I know the league office is shocked that he hadn't signed with the team. The question is not his ability. The question is, how can you prove this? Like, how can you improve your position? Now, you said you wanted him to speak out. Filing a grievance is speaking out.
I disagree. Filing a grievance is a bunch of lawyers, is a bunch of guys getting together and issuing statements. When I say speak, I want to see your face. I want to see the guy that knelt. That's what I want to see.
All right, but let's if we can avoid that part of this discussion, because this isn't about whether or not Cap should speak out. This is about what he did in filing this grievance. The audience should also know this. However unlikely it is that he wins, the risk for the NFL and him winning is this. It can nullify the CBA. One player proving one instance of collusion can affect a clause in the CBA, not to get too in the weeds on it, that nullifies the entire agreement. That is incredibly risky for the owners because they love this CBA. Everyone thinks the owners got over on the players in the CBA. But I just, can we admit, like as a collective, the idea that unspoken collusion happens in pro sports? How about not just Barry Bonds? Let's keep it to the NFL. Do we really think when La'el Collins, a potential first-round pick, La'el Collins was going into the draft, the days before the draft, someone he had been associated with was murdered. There was questions about whether or not he was involved. Now, I want to be fair to La'el. He was never implicated. He was never accused. He was never charged. But there were questions about it. Yeah, there were huge question marks. At that time, no one could draft him based on what potentially could happen. Okay, well, so I was covering the draft. I was in communication with the NFL, and the potential of what could be the results of this were far more explosive and dangerous. I agreed. You don't. So that kind of speaks to my point. Maybe you can call me crazy. I believe there is a team in the league out of 32 that would have said, you know what? We will roll the dice with a 7th-round pick to say, you know what? This is our guy. We now have the rights to him. Somehow, amazingly, no team drafted him because it would have been terrible for the NFL as a collective. Right, but every team had the ability to negotiate with him because he was a free agent. Correct, but one team could have taken him and no one else would have negotiated with him. It was best for the league that no one drafted him, and amazingly, no one drafted him. So the idea that there isn't sometimes unspoken collusion amongst owners, I think is silly. And I don't think these owners are dumb guys. So what other answer do we have as to why Colin Kaepernick doesn't have a job when all these lists of quarterbacks do? What is it? I just want to know. I don't know it.
Collusion is near impossible to prove. And Mark Garrigus, who is his attorney, is just going to have a bear of a time. How do you prove it? No, I don't think that they can prove it, but it's an ugly situation. The optics are ugly for the league. I do believe this is Colin's way of fighting back or speaking out. This is to me is like the next move. I don't believe they're going to be able to prove it. To me, it's not a winnable case. I can't say that I necessarily agree with it, but what are his other options? When they're working out backup quarterbacks every week, his people are reaching out to teams, and teams aren't even responding with any other type of phone call. So Colin's got to do something, and I think this was the only thing that he felt like was the next move that would allow him potentially to be able to gain his job back. All right, that's where we're going to leave it for right now. We're going to take a break. This is First Things First. We're back right after this. Stay with us.